Welcome to Wealthing Talks. I am your host, Alicia Castillo Holley, bringing you real-life conversations from Silicon Valley or somewhere around the world. We will talk about disruptors, angel investments, venture capital, and of course, family offices. Join me along with my children, their families, friends, disruptors, and investors as we explore the fascinating world of creating wealth in a completely different and authentic way. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Alicia Castillo Holley, and I am delighted, absolutely delighted to have David Isaac as a founder and entrepreneur and also supportive of many, many companies. And our guest today, David, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, good morning from Singapore. I'm only a 17-hour flight away from Alicia right now, so it's nice to meet her on the video.
Yeah, and we did meet here, but yeah, and Singapore is one of my favorite countries in the world. And David, how did you get to be where you are doing what you're doing right now? What happened?
Right. So I have a company that develops strategy now. We're an AI SaaS platform that lets you simulate all the possible decisions that you have around your product and your go-to-market. And that started as a journey when I was in university. I remember I said, I want to be the vice president of marketing of BMW USA because I liked driving, on racetracks. And that developed into early jobs in segmentation research, understanding what problems customers were facing before our clients built something. And that, was several gigs as an entrepreneur, an early exit, work with some Series A and Series C startups, then work at Samsung product innovation team, and then actually running innovation at AIPath.one, which is the management consulting arm of Ernst & Young for 7 countries, and a gig as a chief growth officer of a public listed company. And in all of those things, really, I was usually the product guy doing that business model design, taking something new to market, looking for new growth for a client, but always looking at both sides of the marketing and the go-to-market and the product and the silos between those, and the silos that I saw even at like massive banks and massive MNC enterprises. Those always troubled me. So I was supposed to publish a PhD, and the PhD was supposed to de-silo how strategy dictates go-to-market, how strategy dictates product design, how competitor benchmarking research, how customer research dictates priorities and business impact that we need. And there was no one framework. So that was the beginning of my research. And then early AI allowed me to build a platform to do that for you instead of teach you how to do it or publish another 2 books or something like that.
And when did you start that? When did you make the transition from PhD student into entrepreneur?
So the research began privately during COVID, actually.
Okay.
That's when I went from consulting at EY to being a chief growth officer at this public listed company. And that's when the real challenges in connecting go-to-market with the product strategy, that's when it really became obvious to me. And I started doing a lot of research into marketing science again. So it's been a couple of years. And I think about a year and a half into that research, I spent a bomb on executive education again, round 3. and I learned a lot because I was looking at it from a very different angle, not the strategy, not the product, but why do sales and marketing really, have these frictions, right? And who leads strategy for a company? Is it the product officer? Is it the marketing officer? It used to be the marketing officers were very influential. And then ChatGPT 3 and 3.5 came out, and I was like, we can build a do-it-for-you tool instead of just always doing consulting. Because after 14 weeks or 3 months of consulting and $500,000 or $2 million, the consultant is forced to leave. We're just too expensive. So what is that system of record for strategy and product that was really missing? And so that's when really that started, I would say about 2.5 years ago, the research and the framework. And then about 1.5 years ago, we started building the product to help you, to give you your own tool for strategy, because currently strategy is just slides. We publish slides and white papers, but those are communication tools. And so they hide the strategy gaps. They hide all the variations and the decisions that you have to make, because they don't have, decision frameworks built into slides, right? So
Yeah, it's sometimes it's wishful thinking. And sometimes it has no basis, but that's why I like about AIPath. How did you get your first customers?
That's really interesting. So my first customers actually were small agencies of very senior leaders who were probably in their third or their fourth career. And so we're talking people who have published best-selling books, who have led digital transformation for number one banks. And they were starting fractional consulting businesses or publishing thought leadership and books. And somebody said, oh, you should meet David. And it was pretty funny because I'm not a marketing person by nature, right? I'm really a product person. But they just needed help with launching thought leadership. And thought leadership, if you're doing digital transformation in banking, are you targeting universities as the buyer of your book? Are you targeting corporates so you can sell $50,000 keynotes? Are you targeting other banks? Are you targeting fintech and finance consultancies? All of those different positionings, like if your thought leadership is a product, you have different paths to market, and it develops your product as well.
That's fascinating. And who are your main customers now?
Right now, we're seeing agencies that are doing GTM, right? Because they're doing strategy for multiple clients per month. Other people who are doing strategies for other clients, like management consultancies. We've got 3 management consultancies, tier 1 management consultancies using our product. Of course, we have about 700 startups as well, but we also have demos in about 19 enterprises, including 2 innovation labs in California and venture studios in California as well. So it's really a tool for developing strategy. You can use it by yourself, but if you have a full-time job, you're always, bringing on somebody to help you with that work.
So people can go to the website and just check it out for themselves and see if that would work for them.
Exactly. So we have that product-led growth concept. So you can start by uploading your pitch decks, your sales decks, your Jira backlogs. You just upload unstructured content. Within 17 minutes, AIPath builds digital twins of you, of your competitors, of different customers. And then we identify gaps in the customers. Then we identify pains in the customers. And then we identify whether you have the features that lead to product market fit, or we propose the missing features. But it's all done in this enhanced context of now all your customers are on the board, all your competitors are on the board, and very complex simulations of about 4.5 million different scenarios are then ranked, and then we present to you the best next steps for your product marketing and sales teams. Because what we needed to build was a self-learning strategy and operations tool, because a lot of strategy is very vague. So we make it less vague. We make those decisions visible. We make it a self-learning tool because we create the riskiest hypotheses. We create the experiments. We help you run those experiments to customers and validate. So you're learning in hours or weeks instead of months.
And then you can upload the changes and see what happens. Can you do it
And that's critical.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Okay.
That's critical. So you can do it in 2 ways. If you have tested with customers, you bring those results back into the tool, and it's very clear because we've created a hypothesis. So if A, then B, if C, then D, and you see that before you're testing. And so when you're testing, you can bring that back, and then you can run this next scenarios based on that learning. So it's a self-learning tool. And so for that compound data and that compound AI learning, that's why we won that competition called the AI Agents Global Challenge. It's $1 million competition. And judges from some of the, the really cool Ivy League universities, it's that bringing that equivalent of the Netflix thumbs up or thumbs down to your product hypotheses, to your positioning, to your go-to-market hypotheses. That's what we're doing. Yeah.
Did you ever think that you were not going to be able to create the company that AIPath is now? Did you ever have any doubts?
Doubts. It was the other way around. I think when I started using AI to augment the consulting work that I was doing, or the decision, thinking and the game theory that I was doing, if this competitor does this, it was really the failure in chat. Chat is not AI. A lot of people forget that ChatGPT was launched as their MVP. It wasn't meant to be how they wanted to bring AI to the world. And chat is great for quick and single things. It's not really a system. It doesn't lock in changes. It doesn't help you iterate. And if you spend 3 hours with ChatGPT, you can't really bring that around to the rest of the company. So when I was using ChatGPT, when it was still very early, I had an Excel spreadsheet next to it, and I was creating the beginnings of before vector databases became cool. I was building my own, but it had to be visible. And what one of our early unlocks was can we structure strategy? Because strategy has too many frameworks and they're vague and they're gapping, and lots of gaps there. So I think that was what gave me confidence. Before that, I wouldn't have thought of making a tool for strategy. I didn't think it was possible. But after we refined our processes, because I'm really like a very systems thinking, first principles kind of person. And once I built these very clear workflows for how to integrate, LLM outputs into something that was stable and database backed, that was when the doubts, I don't know, I wouldn't say doubts. That was when I was like, oh no, I need to build this. Right, because I'm doing this day in and day out, and it doesn't make sense not to systematize that and productize that. Yeah.
Did you do you have any insights or lessons to you yourself 20 years ago? Is there anything that you learned that you didn't know that might help another person that is in the situation that you were 20 years ago or 20 years before you see that is actually happening?
I have one for you.
For the audience.
I for the audience, and for me, and for actually, I don't think about this enough. It's that the people in leadership, we have most people, you're part of a team, you're an employee, and it doesn't matter your level of seniority, you're probably reporting to somebody. It's probably somebody in charge of you, and we have a lot of expectations. I've been in some very social companies, where there's really a very strong culture, and people react to leadership. Like they really verbally react to leadership, and they'll say, that's not clear, or I don't think that person knows what they're doing. I don't agree with this leadership. They're asking us to do more with less. They're cutting our budgets. They're cutting our teams. And we expect leadership to know what they're doing, right? That is the leadership by example. That is the, my leader inspires me. And we forget, we don't know how hard leadership is. We forget that leaders have a really hard time making decisions. And we forget that actually it's really hard for leaders to even define what decisions they need to make. And we have a lot of expectations of the leaders above us. But we also forget that strategy isn't well defined and strategy isn't taught. And the framework for connecting even research to product decisions to the business impact that we have, that's a framework. I haven't even published on that yet, but that was what the PhD was. How do we turn research into validation of business impact? So we have a lot of expectations of leaders, but strategy and how it connects to product and go to market isn't even something that you can learn, even if you wanted to. So it's actually fascinatingly difficult for leaders to do strategy. So the one thing, if I had to go back in time, would be to how can we actually empower leaders to help them refine and prioritize the decisions they need to make? It's actually not a one-way street where they tell you how to, find the golden goose. It's not that straightforward. And actually, yeah, to have some empathy for leadership, because they can't always know what they're doing, even though we expect them to know that. So it's actually a two-way street. I think the only reason I've ever had a job is because I've always been a person who somehow said, hey, go and figure it out. And I had to go and figure it out, all the way to how it hits the road. So I think that's something that we can teach people and remember. Yeah.
That's very social, very humanitarian, which I think it's missing in a lot of businesses. We tend to forget that we're people, and I connect at a different level because I'm a person and I'm not a resource. So I always talk about that. And when I was teaching at business schools, I always said, do not ever think about people as human resources. They're not human resources, they're humans. A resource is something else, but we have emotions. We can't separate that, and we need to take care of people. But you're absolutely right. We forget that we need to take care of the leaders as well. Yeah, that's a great lesson. Yes, thank you for that. And where do you think you are going to be in 20 years now?
In 20 years, I have Alicia, I depend on my calendar to know what I'm doing next week. I'm scheduling. I'm scheduling in 15 and 45-minute blocks at the moment. I think in 20 years, if we really do this AI optimist lens, we could really be freed up to do very high value and social things. Um, right now we're only at the level of, if as a founder I remove most of my go-to-market activity because AI or agents are running that for me, I can think of how do I want to improve my product, define different categories, do more thought leadership, do more business building. In 20 years, I think I am probably an AI optimist, because that recent MIT article about 95% of pilots failing, you really had to read that research carefully. They said that first it was a very small sample, and then they attribute failure to it not generating ROI in 6 months, and companies don't publish ROI in 6-month cycles. And very few technologies generate ROI in less than a year or 3 years. Because in the same article, they said that people are doing shadow IT, they're using AI on their own personally for their work, but they don't like the AI that the companies are deploying. So AI is creating value, but some of the systems that people are buying aren't designed for workflows, etc. So I think AI will probably change how we interact as people, how we interact as governments. The question of universal basic income also comes up. If we can create labor for free and people are released from labor, and what happens then? I think those are some things that are interesting to think about. What would I be doing if I was completely free from labor? I'd still try to be solving problems. I think it just allows you to tackle very different problems. Yeah, I think we'll be tackling some very interesting problems that we can watch some sci-fi shows like Star Trek or Stargate and see what problems that high-tech civilizations are solving.
We've had 2 salons in my house discussing that. So this is a fascinating topic. And I always go back to basics because I grow a lot of my food. I have some examples around here. But no matter what we do in AI, we need to eat. And no matter what we do with AI, we're still having wars. So I said, hey, just remember that. We still have to tackle those things. But the thought about universal income or basic income, and the thought about allowing people to be free to create more things, to think differently. It's I think it's similar to the agricultural revolution. where people were able to move to the cities. And then out of that, all of this creativity came about. But I think with AI also comes responsibilities. And how do you think we can tackle the responsibilities that AI, or the challenges that AI bring to us in a responsible way?
I'd like to take a step back and take out the word AI from that sentence,
Okay.
right? And I'll tell you why. In 2017 and 2018, I was going around Asia, right, on behalf of the consultancy. And we were explaining to people that disruption was real. We had to convince them that digital transformation was making winners in every category, even as early as 2017. And we had to tell people to take a step back and say, please don't think of digital. Please don't think of digital transformation. Please don't think of blockchain. Don't think of these technologies. Think of the problem you're trying to solve. AI is another tool. It's another form of solving data gaps, right? Now, I think especially OpenAI and some of them, they're really pushing AI as an agent, right? Taking actions on our behalf. But still, these are technologies. The fundamental problems of society, the fundamental things that are key growth drivers. Don't think of how we have to think about ethics just around AI. It's still a company behind it. I still hear people saying, oh, B2B sales, don't forget that the B2B person that you're targeting with your sales is also a human. I'm like, yes. And that's very true. So AI, again, it's just a tool, and ethics of the company deploying it. We do have to think in faster cycles, right? AI can create a positive or a negative hallucination, right?
Mm-hmm.
Too fast before you can notice it. And Mr. Sulaiman was talking about how hallucinations may be the feature that we need to bring creativity to AI. So it's not just bad hallucinations, right? It's all about, again, the interface. I think that we will have to be more aware of how faster cycles will change the implications of what we take to market. Yes, definitely. I think that it is within 1 to 3 years when even small and medium enterprises are somewhat more AI native or AI fluent,
Mm-hmm.
they will also have to start thinking about, do I need governance in my company? Because a lot of SMEs, if you're in a 5, 10, 15, 20 person business, you're not thinking about ethics. That's not really a problem because, the leader of the company, the founder of the company has oversight on every aspect of the company,
Yes.
right? So the company is really, almost micromanaged. That's the wrong word to use, but companies could scale. Suddenly everybody's a global company now. And we forget that we're starting to tell startups last year, build as a global company. It doesn't matter whether you're in Europe or in Singapore, build as a global company, as if this was a revelation. There were people selling stuff on Amazon like 5 years ago, like designing to be a global company. So I think the faster cycles will be a tax on leadership. I think it's an opportunity as much as a tax, but it does mean that you'll have to really school up on what big companies, are held to account for as well.
Yes, I see with a lot of sadness actually that people don't question AI, not just ChatGPT, but any response on AI. I did post a LinkedIn article about, I asked one of the AI companies. Well, I asked four, but I chose one that was very short
Wow,
to,
very thorough.
to create my bio. And it created a bio of this wonderful, lovely woman, always fighting for justice. And I'm an investor. And I'm like, what is this? And I did have a program called Women Get Funded. I'm very big into diversity, as you know, but not to the extent that I'm a bad investor because of that. I'm first an investor and then I promote diversity. But I thought it was really interesting. And then I asked, do the bio as if that person was a white male. And it was Dr. Castillo, you don't have a PhD. Dr. Castillo is a thought leader, completely different, driven, energetic, um, great results. They didn't talk about any of the results or driven. The first one was, oh, these soft skills. And then I asked to do the same if I were a member of the LGBT community. And it was, again, just
Of which community? Sorry.
LGBTQ, the gay community. And then so I asked different things, if I was a Black person or a white person or a white male. And it was really interesting to see how AI just picks up our own stereotypes. So people say, so which one is this? And to me, it's like, well, wait a second. We are collectively creating the stereotypes because it's not one data point. It's how society views this person or that person. I'm going to ask it to create one for you from Singapore and create it if you were in Silicon Valley to see if there's any difference. It's really interesting.
I'm sure there would be.
Yeah, and I just think that people need to learn to question the results of AI because I think that is the area that we're missing. And I also wonder if AI continues to create or support or enhances differences of opinion because it looks at what you're thinking and it validates what you're thinking. I call it the soap bubble authority because it doesn't allow you to challenge what you're thinking because it comes back like an essay from high school. It's always rosy and positive. So those are the things that sort of get into my mind. How do we still teach people that are that are new, that are learning? I think it's going to cause a huge revolution in education as well. But those are the things that come to my mind. Have you thought about that?
Yes, I have three reactions. First of all, and this ties back to that point about that MIT study, right? Chat is not AI. It's the first way most people have been exposed to it, but chat is not AI. That's the first thing. Chat is not the correct substrate for doing thinking. Thinking is a non-linear, right, multi-fork process. And chat is not designed for that. You can have a debate, right? You can have a debate with two of the smartest people in the world. You'll learn a lot from the debate. You'll probably be inspired by the debate. You'll probably have a sense of awe and wonder at the multiple domains that these debaters are bringing to the conversation. But will you be able, as you're walking out the door, to bring three key points from that conversation? And I would argue most people wouldn't be able to easily and quickly do that, right? Because chat is somewhat of a black box, right? Especially with GPT-5, they're trying to be even more probabilistic and more biased to action. They're trying to not show you as much thinking behind for various reasons. But the outcome is that, and it doesn't matter which, GPT 3, 4, 5 we're talking about, you can simply say, before you begin, show me how you're going to think about this. Ask me questions for clarification before you proceed, right? And in this case, it's asking you to guide its bias towards its probabilistic output, because that's what it's doing. It's giving you the next best word. And that's the first two things, right? Chat is not AI. Chat is the wrong modality for doing real decision work, because what you're saying is that, in another way, if I reframe what you asked it, you're saying, hey, help me think about all the different dimensions of who I am as a person, of my career, right? All of my top focuses and all of my secondary and tertiary focuses. And we're asking it to just make those decisions and those prioritizations and then draw a line and cut it off and give me 30 words, right? But if we asked it to talk, about break it down into a process, right? But that would be very difficult to what we call prompt engineering or context engineering. And also, I don't even know if your chat has the memory of all the things. Like, does it have your bio? Does it have the description of every company you've ever worked with, the description of every company you've ever invested in, the description of every company you rejected investing in, etc. Right? That amount of context is missing. It's almost like, what is my strategy for writing the best possible bio? How do I define what is best? Who is this bio for? Is it for my podcast, or is it for my investors? Is it for finding new angels? Is it for convincing a very in-demand startup that I should be their investor, etc. All of those are different agendas that you have to work backwards from. So I would argue, and I wrote an article about this last week, we need to design UX around AI, and chat is not the optimal. And the more mission critical something is, the more complex it is, the more factors affect what good looks like, the more you need a UX that shows you step by step, because we've proven that the visible reasoning in AI is not the best way to do something complex. And now it appears that even writing a bio is a complex thing. So
The funny thing, it
that's
started because somebody invited me to give a talk,
yeah,
and said, "Don't worry about a bio, I'll get it from the web." And I didn't worry about it at all. And then when
yeah.
they made the introduction, it was not authentic to me. And I said, "How did you get that?" I said, "Oh, I got it with AI." But Gemini does that. Gemini, when you ask something, it would tell you, "This is I'm going to tackle it." So I think that's very interesting, and I hadn't realized the importance of that. I want to ask the last question, which is a very fundamental question for me. When I was 13, I fell off a horse and I died, but I didn't die completely. That's a true story. And I saw myself dead there, but of course, they sent me back. But now you're not ready. Go back and do your stuff. And I woke up 4 days later. And I was a teenager, and it's okay. I survived. It's a good story. But I always think there's going to be a time when I'm not here, and I always think about what is my essence. Who am I when I'm not here? And that's probably what you saw when we first met at all those events, because I always bring the essence that is beyond me geographically and in time. So my question to you is, have you ever thought about who is David when David is not here in time and space?
I think about it all the time, right? Not least because I have two girls, and you want, with all your bias, your values to live on in these children, so that they can decide what is, if they can't decide what is good and bad, at least what is nice and not nice, right? And also to be, two young women who, nobody takes advantage of them, right? They can protect themselves. I think as a strategist, or as a product manager, I think trade-offs are the biggest thing that we tackle, right? And whether it's AI in chat, or AI in UX, or whether it's digital transformation or blockchain or Web3, I think if we think about in terms of legacy, right? I like to envision a world where we look at trade-offs and we can really think of the trade-offs that are false trade-offs. The trade-off that I see the most often, of course, is in a 7-year-old girl. The trade-off I see very often is, how can I be happy if somebody else has something I want? Right? That's a very real trade-off for a 7-year-old girl with a 3-year-old sister. Okay. If I look at the trade-offs between product and engineering and UX research, the trade-off will be, how can we test and learn from our customers and interview our customers, as well as ship a product feature quickly? How can we make a decision between the 5 things that boss wants us to build? Right? I think the legacy I want to leave behind is identifying false trade-offs using technology to minimize those trade-offs and yet still bring a bigger picture, bring more context, right? Because if you ask to Gemini with a brand new account of, write a bio for Alicia, it's missing so much context, right? That's what we think about, write a good prompt is about bringing context. I just want to use technology to bring more context to leadership so that they can build things that are more valuable to people. Do I bias what we build or what we do marketing around according to my competitors' weak points? Do I bias it according to what my company can ship first? Do I bias it according to what is the cheapest ad platform for me to do my marketing? All those are false trade-offs with AI right now. They're false trade-offs. But I think bringing to society a wisdom that systems thinking and strategy isn't a waste of time. The strategy about your career, when I was marketing AIPath, I remember a year and a half ago, people were saying, "Hey, this decision making, can I use it for my career and my life instead?" These were like very senior leaders that I was bringing it to, and they're like, "Wow, you're really breaking decision making into a science." I think technology will assist us with that kind of thing, and I want to be part of that legacy, right? Helping people create better outcomes, removing false trade-offs, bringing them more thinking about potential outcomes, likely outcomes, and unlikely outcomes, bringing that together for people.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. David, how do people get in touch with AIPath and with you? What is the best method?
You're very kind. Yeah. So the website is www.AIPath.one. If you search AI for product market fit, hopefully you'll find us. My name is David Isaac Mathews. You'll find us on LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect on LinkedIn. If you want an onboarding for how AIPath can help you, we'd be very happy to assist. We do a lot of keynotes, and we will be in Boston in the 3rd and 4th week of October. And we're looking for an excuse to go to California immediately after that. So please reach out. Please become friends if you care about the same things that we do.
Thank you so much, David.
Alicia, thank you. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you.
So David is one of these very interesting entrepreneurs who is very, very passionate about the progress that his technology and his product can bring to the world, not just himself. I met him, he's from Singapore, and I met him here at a plug and play conference. And the one thing that I really liked about him was the moment right before our meeting, because I had just finished meeting with one entrepreneur to see if we would invest in that company. And he was the next person coming to my table. And he told the entrepreneur, "There's an investor looking for you." And I gave him your information, and he's sitting right there. And I told him that where you were, so please go and talk to him. And I thought, this is such a nice person to go and support the ecosystem. So that was my first encounter with David. I met him 3 times at different conferences, very passionate about AI, and I really like his company, AIPath. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and I'll see you in our next episode. This is your host, Alicia Castillo Holley, yours in Wealthing. Thanks for tuning in to our Wealthing Talks. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. To stay connected, visit us at wealthing.com. This is Alicia Castillo Holley, your host, and until next time, yours in Wealthing.